Welcome to Doom Scroll Patrol, the weekly news roundup show where we doom scroll so you don't have to, trying to make sense of it all while making each other laugh at the same time. Today, we are going to dive into Deepseek, making waves in the AI industry. We're going to be talking about the establishment of possibly a concentration camp in Guantanamo Bay to house migrants. And of course, we're going to be talking about the tragic airplane crash that happened in Washington, D.C. And just a content warning for you, this podcast will have discussions of suicide, but don't worry, there's some good news in here. I'm Aaron Hecky McKay.
I'm Harold Moss.
I'm Hannah Snape.
I'm Sam Perez.
Stick around, you won't want to miss it.
Welcome to the show, boys.
Trump just did like a live press conference about the military airplane collision, and his main reasoning was DEI. So...
Because DEI. Yeah, I know.
Well, I guess we're starting with that.
You've made. Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. Certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior, and that's what we're going to have. Yeah.
Executive order, you've already issued an executive order. You say will restore aviation safety.
Right.
This crash happened after that. Was the executive order successful, and what more needs to change to keep people safe?
Well, you know, we issued it 3 days ago, and we're in the process of making those changes.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
Plus, it wasn't the smelt fish. It wasn't the smelt fish this time. It's either DEI or smelt fish.
Some people are dumb.
Sure. You've seen an incoming fascist regime taking over the most powerful military and economy in the world. Have you done it on the flu? I don't recommend experiencing incoming fascism on the flu.
I wouldn't recommend experiencing incoming fascism as a brown person.
Which is like having a flu all the time? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We're just constantly shitting and coughing, and it's terrible.
I mean, I have heard that minorities are dirty.
Yeah.
I have been told that by very reliable presidential sources.
We sleep a lot, like, you know. It's what they call siestas. Yeah, my mom called me and was just like, "Hey, do you have your birth certificate? Do you have these?" Because like her and my brother carries his birth certificate now all the time, and then like down where they live, I guess they've seen some ice around. I'm not down there, but that's what she's, you know, and she's scared, she's worried, but it's just like, it just sucks because it's like this is now like a fear of like, oh, is like my mom gonna get picked up? Is my brother gonna get picked up? Am I gonna just get like stopped? And even if we don't get picked up, just like harassed essentially because we have brown skin. And it's just like, that's what we're just joking about, or not joking, just talking, where it's like, what are you gonna do? It's like being Native American. Where are you gonna deport me, motherfucker? Like fucking down the street? Like, come on.
I don't know. Guantanamo seems to be.
Oh yeah, apparently it's Guantanamo Bay.
So to break down Trump's plan, it's to take a lot of people who have not gone through due process, concentrate them in a camp on an island. So it's literally, they are building concentration camps now. Like anytime anybody said, oh, it's not going to be that bad, they're not really trying that hard. Now, whether it will be that bad or not is up in the air. What they want to do, if you've ever seen Stephen Miller dreams of the worst things than any of us could imagine in our worst nightmares. This is what they want. But also anybody who says, well, that's not my America. What, you know, where concentration camps were, the idea was inspired from, My America. It came, both apartheid and the Nazi regime took inspiration from Jim Crow. They took inspiration from the enclosure of native peoples onto reservations. Most of the horrible stuff that these people did were actually inspired by My America, right? So let's not pretend that this is some new innovation that has been imported into America. It's really more a circular kind of thing.
What you're saying is that America was really the racism innovator on this. It's always been
America's always been the racism
economy.
innovator.
You're a monster.
Okay, so we're starting with some breaking news in perhaps a recurring segment that we're calling Fuck Around and Find Out. Not too long ago, Trump had fired the heads of the TSA, the Coast Guard, and cut key aviation safety advisory committee roles. Basically, it's just not doing its job anymore. And then what do we wake up to today is a plane crash in Washington, D.C., where a jet carrying 64 people has collided with a military helicopter. And this is breaking as we are talking about this. And it sounds like a real fucking tragedy. This is really, really awful. And of course,
what did Trump
we all know the reason why this is happening is because of DEI, apparently. This is happening as we speak.
Yeah. Did you not hear me talking about how brown people are just constantly lazy and shitting on themselves? Like, of course this happened. That's what happened. That's why it crashed.
So just
not
like
firing
quick
the heads
updates on
of
this
safety.
Trump- yeah, exactly. Has nothing to do with the fact that we've politicized flight safety for some reason. But just to read a little bit of the Guardian's feed on this, the president was backed to the hilt by the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, who said, "We can only accept the best and the brightest in positions affecting passenger safety and defense." Secretary Pete Hegseth, who echoed, "The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest." So this is what the best and brightest gets you. When you're only selecting
let me do a
white
slight
people.
recreation of Hegseth talking about the best and brightest.
Please.
Oh, only the best and the hey, you see the ass on that one? Whoa, you only need the best and the brightest hopping this joint because fucking hell, DEI is gone. I mean, this is literally what they're doing. They are quite intentionally putting drunkards, rapists, and idiots in charge quite on purpose, and then pointing the finger at highly qualified people of color. Like, that is what the next 4 years is going to be, is drunkards, rapists, and fools blaming people who get shit done for their failures and trying to blame every failure that they cause on brown folks. That's the 4 years that they have planned for us.
Yay.
Is it intentional? Because it feels like they're selfish assholes, and they just want to be buddy with selfish assholes, and having any consideration outside of themselves. I guess
it's absolutely intentional.
So is the intention to destroy the government? Is that
that is Project 2025? It is to destroy the proper function. You look at everything they're doing, and that's when let's flip over to the great spending freeze, which was a Project 2025 priority. They tried to freeze $2 trillion plus in spending in a moment, quite unconstitutionally, and it affected everything: grants, the money to Meals on Wheels, Medicaid portals across the country, freezing up everything. And the intention of Project 2025 is to disable the function of the government, except to channel money into the pockets of the wealthy. And it's what the tech bros call accelerationism. They want to accelerate the destruction of the current order in order to build their, techno-fascist future, literally.
Techno-feudalist utopia? Dystopia?
Techno-feudalist utopia, thank you. It is really quite, the destruction of the functioning of the government is the point. So when there's all this, and then the stealing and the grifting and the corruption is also the point. So I would say they are able to multitask. They can destroy and steal, right? But it is very intentional. That is what they're trying to do is break the functioning of the government. So that people don't trust it, and they can go in and privatize and sell shit off and buy it up, and absolutely intentional.
Over $1 billion a year.
So just a little context on the spending freeze. So they proposed a spending freeze that is unconstitutional because Congress has appropriated the money, right? It's like you can't interfere with another branch of government.
Congress has the power
Yeah,
of the
it's
purse,
approved
as they call it.
expenditures. Yeah, and they can't just take that away unilaterally. That's craziness. And that has now been taken. So the good news is that that's now been backed away from.
That's been backed away. They sent out a 2 memo that basically said, take backsies, ignore it. It's not happening. It blew up in their faces so much. And because, of course, all of the people in Congress, it was screwing over everybody who votes for them. So that is a sign that these people are, first of all, this was their first big defeat, honestly. It was the first big defeat that they had to take it back. They're not done. They're going to keep going after it. But it was a defeat, and it shows that this stuff can blow up in their faces. And I think there's every reason to think that we could be looking at Trump at his peak, and that it's downhill for him from here.
What you're saying is you're being optimistic about this, is that because they're so incompetent, like they blew their shot already, and it's just all down from here.
It is possible. I don't think it's baked in stone, and it's going to have a lot to do with how people respond and what kind of resistance and what kind of outrage there is. But they can't simply do it. They will destroy on the way, regardless. There is destruction coming. There is death coming. There is awful things coming. But it is entirely possible that what we're going to see is, and even there was the first in Iowa, we saw a state Senate seat flip. That was it had started as a 60% Trump won, and already now Democrats won in that district 52% to 48%. It was a massive shift away that I don't think that they represent a fundamental shift to the right for the country. They represent voter suppression. They represent horror and disgust at a system that doesn't seem to be working for everyone. And yes, they represent the success of disinformation bringing racism, and particularly around immigration, up to the fore. But they are not as powerful as they would like us to be. That's the optimism as I have, is they're not as powerful as they like to be. And the more we surrender, the more we say, oh my God, there's nothing we can do, the more powerful they are. I think their corruption and grifting and the fact that they're screwing over everyone has every chance of actually saying that they really are at their current peak, and that things will start to fall apart for them, even as they're making them fall apart for the rest of us.
What are the Democrats doing? Are they just like sitting around like are they just like, well, sorry guys, give us $5? Like, it's like, what's going on over there? I know like Bernie and AOC are like, they're pretty fired up and they're constantly yelling about things, which is good. But like, is everyone else like, are they just, I know Nancy Pelosi's just like padding her stock portfolio with the Nvidia shit. Like, is anyone else doing anything?
She's taking a bit of a hit these days.
Yeah, our thoughts.
No, she dumped her.
My thoughts and prayers to Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio.
No, she dumped her Nvidia stock in advance.
No way.
And that's right. She did. It was like a month.
Invested in something else that has doubled. So no, Nancy never takes a hit on her stock portfolio, which is.
It's like she knows what the future's gonna be.
Well, she knows what the present is. Yeah, but AOC's laid out quite reasonably that members of Congress should not be allowed to profiteer from things like wars they help fund. Right.
I mean, makes sense.
Seems reasonable. There is, I think that the best fighting we're seeing is we're starting to see some muscular questioning of people like RFK Jr. And I would say it's wholly inadequate, and they should not be voting for any of these people, and there should be a united opposition. And that is something that the Democrats have just never done in this kind of sense. They try to have the comity of the Senate and gentlemanly rule.
I can't remember which one. They voted in someone or something, and all the Democrats voted for it. I forgot what it was. I should have bookmarked it. But I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, what is happening? I don't know. That's why I was just wondering, like, are they doing anything, or are they just like, who was it? One of them said like, well, we're just going to keep our head down and focus on the economy or something. And it's like,
well, I will say that Chuck Schumer's response to the spending freeze was not they're freezing Medicaid, they're making kids go hungry. It was Now the Republicans are defunding the police, and that to me is the perfect example of them kind of adopting their language rather than actually talking about the economy and how it's hurting people.
Yeah, it seems like the incentives are to try to like, oh, look how hypocritical you are. And it's like, they don't give a shit if they're being called hypocrite. They know they're hypocrite. They don't care. Yeah. This is not a gotcha moment. Like, if you think that that's going to hurt them, then you are just owning yourself. They're like, oh yeah, well, you got me. And as they stuff their pockets, I just feel like they haven't figured out what the game is yet. And they're all trying to like maybe do the populism that the Republicans did to get into office, because if they do that kind of tactic, it worked for them. It must work for us, even though it's just fundamentally a different game when you're trying to move things forward instead of to move things backwards. Like, do what the Republicans did to move backwards. To move forwards, you have to do something completely different, and that's to get people on board with a vision of the future. And no one is doing that. No one has offered a more like a sustainable, equitable version of the future outside of like the last time we tried was the Green New Deal, and that we were close to something. Best we got was the Inflation Reduction Act, which is now policy lurched backwards. So I think everyone's just like, we're going to spend the next 6 months being like, fuck, until something happens where we just get angry again. I don't know.
Something is coming, something powerful, wild.
There's a whole other conversation, which is our economy shouldn't depend on underpaying and overexploiting undocumented folks. That's wrong.
No.
We should be paying everybody. But just simply taking them out of the workforce is an absurd and just catastrophic policy. So a lot of these policies are going to catch up very quick. Most of what Trump's doing is not popular, right? That's the thing. It's not popular. People liked the vibe of hate. They didn't really want the hate to affect their pocketbook, right? That's what's starting to play out.
They were fash curious. They weren't fully fash. The egg prices were annoying. So maybe if we deport enough people, egg prices will go down. I think. I'll try it. I'm a little bit, let's just call it fash curious.
Lipstick fascists.
Yeah.
Lipstick fascists.
What's that, mister? What did you say? This is the Pacific. This isn't Saipan. This isn't New Guinea. This isn't Guam. This isn't the Philippines. This is America.
That's right. This is America.
The United States, the Trump administration is now pushing to have 30,000 migrants housed in basically a tent city in famously accommodating Guantanamo Bay, which currently has about like 800 civilian and personnel, like military personnel, and then 15 prisoners left behind from the War on Terror, which, if you remember, was one mission accomplished. If we're watching this on video, George W. Bush mission accomplished banner.gif. And that seems to be the next step of this. They've run out of space in all of the private contractors, because the way the immigration system works apparently is you have a bunch of weird agencies and private companies that will just like ICE hands them over to like, yeah, how's this guy until we can find him a flight? And they're like, okay. So those are full up, obviously. So they're like, let's open up 30,000 beds in Guantanamo Bay. We have it. It's just sitting there. So there's literally a concentration camp being built now, it seems, within the first 100 days.
So they are laying the basis for the worst case scenario. That is what their goal is the worst case scenario. And then it's going to have to do with resistance at every level. And resistance not in the wear a pink hat, but resistance in, Greyhound bus driver telling ICE agents, gargle my balls if you think you're getting on my bus.
But what is the measure of a true hero?
So what stage of genocide are we at now?
Which genocide are we talking about? Well, I mean, the one in Gaza, they're pretty far along.
Oh, there's a few happening globally.
Yeah.
But the American
we're
deportation.
in the early stages, and that's why putting friction
I don't know, man.
into the machine.
It looks, based on these stage definitions, it seems like we're kind of far in here.
Well, they're pointed there. They're pointed there. That's where pouring sand on the machine is critical.
Every Hydra agent that we've tried to take alive has crunched a little pill before we can stop it.
We were talking about how things are getting more expensive, but the only thing that's getting less expensive is the Market capitalization of these giant AI firms, thanks to Deepseek, a new Chinese-made ChatGPT competitor that it really just blew up last week. It's become the most downloaded free app in the App Store and all the other places. And basically the big thing, if you don't know, is that it does almost everything that ChatGPT does. Some places and all the other large language models, it outperforms them. And it was made for $6 million, apparently, about $6 million, which is orders of magnitude less. Like we're talking just from the billions to the single digit millions is a huge leap in terms of the cost of making these. And so we're looking at kind of the commodification or the commoditization. LLMs are becoming a commodity is kind of the idea, and they're just going to be exchangeable, and it's completely thrown a wrench in the whole model of the AI industry.
And one of the other positive things besides watching, people like credibly accused sister rapist Sam Altman see his OpenAI company take an enormous hit. I'm being legally correct, but I feel like these people, it's like self-evidently obvious Nazi Elon Musk. I also feel like is quite safe, but credibly accused sister rapist Sam Altman of OpenAI, seeing their portfolios and their credibility take a hit is definitely satisfying. Also, this thing is using a fraction of the energy, probably on the order of 10% of the energy to do the same thing. One of the many, many, many issues with AI, first of all, that they stole all the data that they train it on. They just stole it. They say it. They scrape the web. They take all of our writing, all of our art, all of history. They scrape it up. They don't give anybody any rights to it, and they use that to train their models. But they're also water hogs and energy hogs. So we are actually seeing one of the reasons it's so much more energy efficient is there was a ban on exporting NVIDIA chipsets, which is the US model was massively scale up these huge systems using tremendous amounts of these extremely expensive, extremely energy hungry chipsets. China couldn't get as many of them, so they had to do more with less. So it's actually it's speaking to one of the things that AI could have a model that it didn't need to have that model of being so energy and water intensive. Still lots of issues with it. Also, they're also though whinging because they're like, oh, they stole our data to build it. It was like, wait, they stole the data you stole to build their model, and that's what you're complaining about? Yes, they are using second generation stolen information that OpenAI and Musk and Meta and all these people scraped off the web. The whole basis of training AI is stealing everybody's information and art and output and creativity and using it to train. So that hasn't changed, but it is absolutely taken just a huge hit to the AI industry in the U.S. right when Trump was announcing a $500 billion investment into the same old model, right?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest loser in this is Facebook or Meta.
No, Meta's actually not. No, Meta's actually not.
Aren't they?
No, Meta went
don't they have a whole sunk cost thing? Where they've been making their own shit, and it's just like, oh, I guess this is nothing now.
Nope. 2 years ago, they now Meta's. I'm not going to defend Meta, but they were clever and they said open source is the way to go. That's the other thing that Deepseek did is they made this model open source so anybody could download it and build their own version on it. So and Meta actually embraced open source with AI, so they were actually ahead of the curve. They're the ones who are actually looking a little clever right now, honestly. They may be boosting disinformation and accommodating fascism like all the other ones, but they were at least right on the open source model for AI. And now someone...
So just in terms of the stock market...
I was going to say, and now someone took the Deepseek one and rebuilt it for about $30.
Yeah. Well, they rebuilt like only on like a couple billion parameters, very, very small version of it. But they're just trying to see basically how small can you get and how cheap can you make these models. And for just $30, they created one that started to have its own self-correcting mechanisms in terms of answering the prompts. Any less than that, it kind of just sort of guesses randomly and never gets it. Once it gets to a high enough bill, like again, $30 is not a lot. So like there is a sort of a glimmer of hope that AI is not going to be the power-hungry, water-hungry. Of course, the United States is still going to double down, I think, on just the giant spend, because I think the bet is still going to be, well, if we're going to have all of the investments, and it's not a bad thing to have all of these data centers, is probably their thinking, but it does seem that they have a risk in being like the ones who do the hard part first, and then just getting copied for a fraction of the price later on to get the same results, and then
All
no
open
longer
source
having
and
a return
anybody
on
can build it.
investments.
Yeah,
Yeah,
anybody
and then
can
no one,
build it.
and then they don't get the return on investment.
Well, yeah, I think they're going to double down too, because if there's one thing America loves, it's bailing out rich people, even though it's like obviously not affecting or helping anyone. Like, we're going to bail out Sam Altman. Of course we are. It's like, we have to. It's what we always do. So
Innovations in racism, innovations in bailing out rich people from their own stupid decision making.
Yep.
So yeah, if you have stock in the S&P or in the NASDAQ or whatever, yeah, NVIDIA stock lost almost $600 billion in value in one day. It's slowly creeped up a little bit, but like $600 billion is just so much money. It's just an unfathomable amount of money.
Will that make their fucking cards cheaper though?
Nope.
Fucking course.
Well,
Fuck
no,
you,
it
NVIDIA.
actually will.
I don't know, it might.
It actually
It
will
actually might, yeah.
if the demand.
Okay, never mind. I love you, NVIDIA.
The evil that lies within. From down in the fiery depths of the earth where nightmares begin.
Well, and if we really want to go into a doom scroll spiral, maybe that could be another feature. The spiral.
Ooh.
Which
the
is
spiral.
AI. Another piece of technology that's been evolving is AI using living human brain cells. And you can actually rent computer time from human brain cells cultured into...
Fuck everyone in this fucking planet. Tech bros are a parasite and they should all be killed.
Only time will tell if they deserve it.
No,
I don't know.
Charlotte.
I'd make a bologna sandwich out of someone. Sure, why not?
That probably tastes good.
Out of a tech bro.
I have tech, bro.
I'd fry him in the bologna.
Not what's his dude who's bragging that he's no longer injecting his son's blood.
Oh yeah, that guy looks gross.
Brian Johnson? You don't want a translucent bologna sandwich?
No, I don't want that.
You don't want a sandwich that looks a little bit like Tilda Swinton? You don't want a sandwich that like talks about his penis way too much?
And
didn't he also
penis.
like track his like son's
tracked his
boners
son's
or
erections? Yep, he did.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Can you
He has
imagine just
there's
the
an app for
trauma
that.
of having? Can you imagine having the trauma of just like, so you're telling me your father, like being a therapist of that guy's son later on, he's like, so your father took your blood and then tracked your erections to compare them against his own?
Yeah, or even just like dating, you look up that guy and you're like, oh, I know your boner information.
I think this is the type of information that is really doing the public a service, because my mom started watching the Brian Johnson TV series.
Oh yeah, there's a Netflix doc.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, you're watching this? And she's like, yeah, seems interesting. And I'm like, do you know anything about this guy? No, never heard of him. So we're informing the public about fucking weirdos.
And then your mom was like, Hannah, how many boners are you having?
Exactly.
Give me your
We
blood,
need to
Hannah.
stop the cycle.
But it's funny because, like, if a poor person was doing that shit, he'd go to jail. That person
Or Guantanamo.
Or Guantanamo. But because it's like this weird rich guy, like, we're all like, wow, what an innovator. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous. It's like, no, you can call him a fucking creep weirdo. Like, just because he has $1 billion doesn't mean, like, he's this amazing person. He's a fucking creep, a perv, and a weirdo, and he should be, like, catapulted into the sea.
I don't have the psychological research to back this up, but something tells me that once you get to a certain level of wealth, you kind of have to see yourself as superior. Otherwise, the level of wealth that you've attained is totally morally unjustifiable. So for psychological safety reasons, you have to tell yourself that you are better than everybody. Otherwise, your life is just a complete lie. and you are not worth living. Like it's not worth living.
And the
or whatever.
friction,
So,
and the
like the
friction
money
of-
that you have and the power you have is totally unjustified.
Yeah. So any billionaires listening right now, kill yourselves, please. Please kill yourselves.
No.
Wait, first
Sam,
redistribute
Sam.
your wealth, give it to everyone, then kill yourself.
Well,
Thank
then
you.
you don't even have to. Right? That's the choice. Give away
No,
your
no,
money.
they should-
Don't
they should
be
kill-
rich.
They should,
No, don't
they should kill
them.
themselves for having been rich, is what you're saying.
Having
Give
been-
away all your money now that you're poor.
They did the right thing and now fall on your sword.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
just the consequences of free will.
Yeah, sorry, bro. Like
I don't make the rules, Sam says.
Yep. Sorry, it's just what we have to do. I don't trust. That's the thing. I wouldn't trust you, even if you were poor like me as a former billionaire. I don't trust you. Like,
Well, I don't know.
you-
Yeah, they might be able to pull themselves up from their bootstraps once again. You never know.
you know,
Oh,
they
yeah,
could
'cause they've
try
got the
that in
networks.
hell. Where
They can self-made themselves into a monopoly or into a crony capitalist
Because
like,
networks
arrangement, or just inherit it again.
He didn't do it himself.
In my home state, New Mexico, Native American suicide rates have dropped by 43%, which is like a lot, especially because Native Americans and like Alaskan Natives have the highest suicide rate in the entire country, which sits around like 91% higher than the average population. In New Mexico, the suicide rate is like it was climbing to 56% from basically 2009 to 2018. A lot of the reason they think is obviously because it's like ongoing effects of colonization, forced assimilation, systemic abuses, poverty, all this stuff. But it started changing around because they've been doing a lot more like culturally sensitive, like culturally centered Native American suicide prevention programs and things like that. So it's really like helped my community and like is going to help more people. And I'm super stoked because like being Native American, I'm pretty sure a lot of other natives can relate. We all know someone who's committed suicide. Like it's almost like it's just a part of your life. Like it's just something that happens. We all know someone. So to hear this about New Mexico is amazing. It was super stoked. I'm super stoked to hear it. And I hope it keeps going. And I hope it spreads to other nations and they can bring their numbers down a lot like this. So I don't know. That's good news, especially with all the like ICE deportation stuff. And like, I know there's a lot of fear now. Like I said, in my nation, Navajo Nation, there's been a lot of fear. So this is like a really good boost to be like, yeah, it's scary, but like, hey, we're doing good. We're still here. We're still surviving. So, yeah.
So
And
all
doing
those
it
jokes
by
about billionaires killing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from this.
Yeah, no, because these are the people. These people who've killed themselves don't deserve it.
Right.
Billionaires do. Like,
But reclaiming sovereignty,
I still stand by that.
and community and cultural traditions that away from colonialism. It's really like resistance takes so many forms, right? And that's Hannah. When you were talking about what do people do, like Native folks taking back control over their communities to take on a crisis of suicide caused by colonization is about as high a form of resistance I can imagine, right? It is culture back, it is land back, it is resistance, it is saving lives on the ground, and then it's strengthening going into the future to be able to even take back more from colonization. So those are the things that really give me tremendous hope for resistance. And it's not always going to be a mass protest. It can involve that, but sometimes it's something much more intimate and something much easier to miss if you're not paying attention. And I think those are the resistances that need to be happening everywhere, which is how we stick up for each other.
Was it Marcy Rendon? She said, being alive and native is an act of resistance, resiliency, and activism. Which I agree. Like, I tell that to my kid. It's like the fact that we wake up and breathe. It's like, it's an act of resistance to do that. Even celebrating our culture in small aspects is like an act of resistance because like they tried to stop it. Like I remember there was a powwow we went to and I was telling my kid about it and like, just like example, like Native Americans in America couldn't celebrate their own cultural religious practices till 1978, I think it was. My mom was 21. That's how old she was before like this stuff was legal. Like it was illegal. My grandma's life, basically. Like you couldn't do traditional, like we have like the Yebiche dance. Like you couldn't do that. It was like, or it was done in secret. So the fact that like we can even just like, I can like pull up Spotify and listen to like powwow music is like insane. Like if my grandma was alive and I could tell her that, it would like blow her away because like it was illegal for so many years.
Yeah, I see a lot of people online in indigenous communities who tell their stories and the dark places that they've been, and it's always the thing that brings them out is the community and participating in their cultural traditions. That's the thing that brings people out of those dark places, and I just hope that it just keeps growing and people keep finding the things that they need.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
and with that, like that was with me. Like I tried to commit suicide a number of years ago, and once I got out of it, it was like my community was like what helped me heal and move forward, because at the time I just didn't see any hope because of what was going on and everything. But now, I am much better and I am a little more connected, and all of that. But yeah, I have hope. Hope that billionaires will kill themselves.
And scene.
All right, we can end there.
All right.
Undeniable.